What's going on, guys? Dr. Andrew Fix back for another episode here on the Code, and thought about bringing you another episode podcasting in the Pathfinder today, but the sun was a little bit brutal. It was in the eyes on the way to the office this morning, so we just got here parked, and we're going to go for a short walk while we have this conversation. So, like I always say, man, I really appreciate you being here, tuning in to this episode, and hopefully I'm not too winded or anything, or there's no wind on the microphone, so that we can have a good chat. And what we're going to talk about today is this concept of entry points. And I was having a conversation with a client in the office, I think it was earlier this week, 2 days ago, and we were actually talking about the growing popularity of the sport of pickleball. And with pickleball specifically, I've heard from a couple people, typically people that have been very involved in tennis for a number of years, kind of like putting down this rise in popularity of pickleball. And not being somebody who has played a ton of pickleball or really played any tennis significantly in my life, besides just swinging the racket a few times as a kid, I don't really understand why. I mean, I understand that pickleball to some can be like a watered down version of tennis or an easier version of tennis. However, there are a lot of people that never played tennis that are picking up pickleball and loving it. And to me, I think that's awesome, right? As a physical therapist, as someone who is constantly talking about how we can improve our health, improve our fitness, improve our longevity, live an active and fulfilling life, I think somebody who doesn't have a sport or hobby that they like to do, finding pickleball as a thing that they can do, whether they're working, whether they're retired, regardless of what age they are, and finding pickleball as something that they love to do and they want to go play with their friends and coworkers, I think it's fantastic, right? And so we started talking about that, and I said, pickleball could be used for some as an entry point into their activity, into their physical fitness, into creating some hobbies around health and exercise. And alternatively, as long as we are not continuing to move the goalpost in a less and less intense direction, what I'm not saying is because our world continues to get more and more unfit, that we should keep lowering the bar and lowering the standard. That's not exactly what I'm saying. Although we have to meet people where they are, right? And it's a reality that our world continues to get more and more unfit. The rates of adult and childhood obesity, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, things that through a healthy lifestyle, through sleep, through proper nutrition and exercise, we can prevent these things for the most part. These rates continue to go up. So we have to find probably lower and lower physical fitness entry points for people to find success and to find happiness and enjoyment in these healthier lifestyle activities, in exercise specifically. And we need to meet people where they're at. And I think pickleball is one of those things, right? Pickleball is a less intense, less difficult version than tennis for somebody to play a similar sport and get some exercise in. And I think pickleball could be a great entry point. Now, let's take a different example. Back pain is very prevalent. We've had some conversations on this podcast about back pain. Deadlifting is very beneficial and very healthy for our back when we do it properly and we do it correctly. But somebody with back pain might not be able to deadlift pain-free. So we might need to find a different entry point for that person to get back into the movement pattern of hinging. So for example, that might be a glute bridge, or that might be a hip thrust where you're doing a bridge, but your back is on a bench or on a box. And maybe you have a weight over your waist, over your pelvis, or maybe you don't, right? But somebody with back pain during deadlifts might be able to hip thrust without back pain. And that would be a great entry point for us into getting back into hinging, building confidence in that movement pattern so that we can parlay that into deadlifting. Maybe they can do a kettlebell swing without much back pain or without any back pain, because kettlebell swings put a different stress on the lower back than does deadlifting. Taking the shoulder, for example, maybe somebody can't overhead press without back pain, but maybe we could hook that barbell up to a landmine attachment and have it be on an angle. And maybe they can landmine press at a slightly different angle and not have shoulder pain. And that's a great entry point into getting back into overhead pressing, because overhead pressing, lifting things over our head, is very, very functional, right? So we have to be able to find the entry point. And then one thing that I also want to make sure I address and mention on this is there's this study out there. It's not even that old. It's from 2020. And it talks about just this tiny fraction of exercise, higher intensity exercise, that could be a great starting point for somebody to get into healthier habits. So what they did in this study is they took 34 people. They were all sedentary, meaning not active, right? And they were all over the age of 65. So these are all older adults, typically they Medicare age or often retired, and all sedentary. They took these 34 people, which is a pretty good sample size for a study, and they split them into 3 groups. One was a control, meaning they didn't do anything different. One was a 1 time a week exercise group, and one was a 2 time per week exercise group. And the protocol of exercise that they did was on a bike, or what's called a fan bike, a bark bike, like an assault bike or an echo bike with arms and legs that you're pushing. And they had them do, you know what, and I take that back, it may not be. It just says bike sprint intervals, so it may honestly just be a traditional bike. Regardless, it doesn't really matter for the purposes of the study. I'll go dig into that, and we'll link it in the show notes. But they had them do, you guys, such the smallest fraction of exercise, and the results are staggering. So they had them do 6-second sprints on the bike for 10 rounds. 6 seconds for 10 rounds, right? And they did this over the course of 8 weeks. And again, they had them either do this twice a week, once a week, or a control group that was not doing this. 1 minute of exercise, right? 1 minute of higher intensity exercise. Sprint for 6 seconds on the bike, rest for 10, sprint for 6, rest for 10. And, they were resting for 1 minute, 10 rounds. Sprint for 6 seconds, rest for 1 minute. Do that 10 times. 1 minute of total exercise. And they monitored blood glucose. They monitored an 8-minute VO2 max test. They monitored something called the tug, which is a timed up and go. It's a very common test used in physical therapy for the older adult. You get them up out of the chair, they stand up, they walk as quick as they can around a cone, and they come back and sit down in a controlled fashion, and you time that. It's very relevant for fall risk and mortality risk. And then what else do they measure? Something called a 5-time sit to stand. How long does it take you to stand up and sit down from a chair? 5 times. And again, another test commonly used with the older adult in physical therapy clinics. And in both of the groups, compared to the control, the 1 time per week and the 2 time per week exercise group, they saw statistically significant changes and differences in all of those things that were measured. Again, blood glucose, very relevant for health and longevity, preventing things like diabetes, blood glucose monitoring, VO2 max in an 8-minute test, timed up and go, 5 times sit to stand. All these markers improved even in the group that only did 1 minute of high intensity exercise 1 time per week. So when you think about that, when you think about somebody who, they say, I don't have time to exercise, I don't have the motivation, like I don't want to exercise, I don't have the equipment or something, and I just don't know what to do, right? We can find, oftentimes with the help of a provider, a great coach, like we can find an entry point for almost anybody, right? And that's what we need to do. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons that like coaches are so valuable, is they can help you or anyone you know when you don't know where to begin, when you think, well, I can't exercise because I can't do as much as my friend does, I can't do as much as my significant other, my brother, my sister, my whoever it is, my friends, I can't do what they do, so I'm just not going to do anything. Well, no, we just need to find what the entry point is for you or for that person. And sometimes you need the help of a coach to do that because you might not know what to do. But this is an awesome study where it shows us that we can see, particularly in sedentary individuals, we can see significant changes that will improve somebody's health status based on all these markers, literally by doing 1 minute of higher intensity, 6-second sprints for 10 reps on a bike per week. And that's just, like, that's such a cool study to show us that it doesn't have to take a lot to see some changes, to see some benefits. So I guess what I want to leave you guys with is, if you know somebody who is struggling to get involved in health, fitness, improving their sleep, or if that's you, let's just find your entry point, right? It doesn't have to be rocket science. We don't have to run a marathon tomorrow. The Olympic trials are going on. We're watching all these people do these amazing performances. And, none of us, if we've not put in the years of training and have some of the genetic gifts that some of these folks have, we're not going to do that stuff. And that's okay. But we just need to do something, right? If you want to live an active, fulfilling life, we just need to do something. And if you can make your training look similar to the things that you want to be able to do, whether that's playing with your kids, whether that's running, and do the things that are necessary in your training and preparation to help you get there, we just need to find your entry point. So I hope you found this valuable. I hope you're as excited as I am about the fact that we have studies out there that show the benefits of exercise, even if it's literally 1 minute a week, how beneficial that can be on improving some of these results for people, because these things correlate to reducing your risk of falls, reducing your risk of dying earlier than we need to, reducing your risk of just not being able to live an active life, right? And decreasing things like diabetes, like high blood pressure, by working on our cardiovascular health, because this is a very cardiovascular study. But I really appreciate you guys listening to this episode of The Code. On this little walk, I tried to find a little bit of shade there so the sun wasn't messing up this video. And if you think this would be relevant for somebody that you know, please share this episode. We're trying to get more people tuned into this show. We're trying to get more people optimizing their health, human performance. And another way that you could help us get this in front of people is to drop a review. If you've not already done so, drop a review on this podcast, whether it's Apple, Spotify, YouTube, however you're listening to this. And again, we just really appreciate you guys. And we look forward to catching you on another episode of The Code. We'll see you later.